Hello, everybody, and welcome to, let me get this out of my face, and welcome to Sportcat's Daily Gazette. I'm glad you're here. Thank you to Yerg's Radio, Radio X, Dare Media.
The and boss course, jock.
That is me, the boss
has
jock.
Entered the building. You are listening to the Sportcat Show.
That's right. Daddy has control of both the radio and the interwebs. We are live on YouTube. Come over and find us. Join the chat. We have a great chat. Denise, Chris are already here. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I only have a few minutes, I'm told, in the beginning of every video to tell everybody what's going on. Today, we're going to get some great news, but I want to get personal for a second because somebody rattled my chain here recently about reporting. And I want to just kind of open with this because we've only got the first few minutes. I've already wasted one with music trying to get the notification out. So let's just hit it real quick. Most of you know, my followers know, I'm a retired firefighter, paramedic, hazmat technician, rescue specialist, blah, blah, blah. I have seen things that I can't talk about. I've been in classes that I can't talk about. And when I talk to you guys and gals, I'm trying to give some information and not be a MAGA or a libtard, but the newer generation, the younger people, view you either as a boomer or somebody who doesn't have the education or experience or qualification, unless you're Megyn Kelly, Joe Rogan, whatever, Charlie Kirk, Benny Johnson, any of those guys, even Alex Jones. But they don't understand. My point of view is I've seen the world through different glasses, and most people don't understand the real threat that is around us. It doesn't have to be a person with a funny name or a different skin color. There is a real and live threat around us. Aside from all the things we hear about in the news, the stormed borders, the crazy people, there are other things, and people are not aware of their surroundings. And when they are, I'm going to video you. God, I've had that shoved in my face so many times on scenes. Why not be a human and get involved and get active in your community, active in helping to spread information that can not only save your life, but others. Don't be one of these guys and gals that just stands there and records it. Don't keep the blinders on because the mainstream media is not going to tell you things. I'm sorry. They're not going to be the ones that inform you of real life events, things going on. They're going to tell you what they want you to know. And just to prove this point, I talked to Yergs about this before we went off the air. Check and see if your local community police communications are encrypted. If your local police department and communications are encrypted, like mine here are in Gwinnett County, there's a reason. Because they encrypt the radio, so you and I can't hear it. By the way, ham radio, everybody should have their ham radio license or GMRS. Ask me, I can tell you all about it. But they encrypt their radios so that you can't find out what's going on 2 streets over. Because they take the same radio and they go, okay, NBC4, we like you. Here's a radio. But before you report a story, contact our PIO. So they control who gets the information. That is not freedom of information. So that's the first thing you need to investigate in your own community, because if you find that to be true, then you're not getting information. It's just a fact because they're filtering it. Prime example. I was just in Knoxville taking care of some family things. There was an incident that occurred right at the city limits, right? Actually, kind of technically at the city-county limits. A bunch of thugs during the middle of a busy day shut down the intersection, was doing donuts, shooting in the air, terrorizing people, took over a whole entire parking lot of it was an AutoZone rally. It was an auto parts place. And we're scaring people. Now, one time did it make WBIR, WAT, WVLT, Knoxville News Sentinel, 99, 95, whatever it was, WNOX. Nothing. Why? because they don't want the public scared. In Knoxville's way of thinking, and I've been there, I've worked in a small city, and I've ran the shootings at night of the gang violence and the things going on. Next morning, none of it's reported. So I started asking why, even when I was there, and I was told because Knoxville is the gateway to the Smoky Mountains, and they don't want people to know what's going on there because it will affect tourism and be negative for the city and county. But is that fair to the residents that live there? Is that fair to the tourists that come in to see Smokey the Bear? No, it's not. And the media is not going to report this because they are chained to this. If they lose this, they lose all access. And when they do hear something, we got to talk about this. They have to contact the public information officer to see if they can. That's not freedom of information. That's not freedom of the press. That's throttling it so that you know you're not getting the information. At any rate, I'm on a rant. And Chris in our chat is 100% correct. Follow the money. It'll always give you a reason, even if it's something as nefarious as we want to make sure we can keep tourism for the city, county. Yeah, I don't know. So today we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about our normal stuff and some other things, but oh well. All right, so it's currently 1:17. I need to put my universal coordinated clock up there. There we go. It's 1:17, and let's see. Good morning to you in Chicago, New York, Denver, Los Angeles. It's real early. Anchorage, 9:17 in the morning. Honolulu, 7:17. Australia, you're listening to us in the overnight hours. And if you're listening in the UK, good morning to you. So welcome to everyone. We are glad you're here, and we're glad you're taking a few moments to spend with us. And if you happen to manage through my rant there, which I hope you did, hopefully we can gain some information about this stuff. So we always start off with a little bit of a history lesson before we jump into the news, because it's important to know, well, what happened in the past. So I'm not going to go all the way back to 1794. Let's jump a little bit forward. If you want that kind of education, take a college class or do some research. 1976, Tangsun earthquake, a 7.6, kills 300,000 in northern China, the largest loss of life from an earthquake in the 20th century. 2005, the Provisional Irish Republic Army calls an end to its 30-year long armed campaign in Northern Ireland. Today in film, 1932, White Zombie, first full-length zombie movie to feature Victor Halperin and Bela Lugosi. 1914, Foxtrot, his first dance at the New Amsterdam Roof Garden in New York City by Harry Fox. 1973, 600,000 attend the Summer Jam Rock Festival featuring the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers at Watkins Glen, New York. At the time, it was the largest ever audience at a pop festival. 1977, legendary English cricket all-rounder Ian Botham, he makes his debut, 5 for 74 in the Australians' first innings in a 7-wicket third test win at the Trent Bridge. I wish I understood what a lot of that was. So I apologize that my sports knowledge on UK sports is not that in depth. Can tell you over the weekend, the first black man won at the Brickyard. I can tell you that. And if we got time, we'll cover that. So John Sebastian Bach dies in Germany at the age of 65, considered one of the greatest composers in Western music, if not all time. His compositions like the Well-Tempered Clavier and the choral work Mass in B minor, he died following complications after having 2 unsuccessful eye surgeries. 1945, a plane crashed into the Empire State Building. A B-25 Mitchell bomber with 2 pilots and 1 passenger crashed into the Empire State Building. The crash caused by heavy fog triggered a massive explosion between the 75th and 79th floors. 14 people died, and the impact caused the modern equivalent of 10.5 million in damages. Chris says, I know football. I don't know what the heck that was. Yeah. I've seen it. We talked about the earthquake in 1976. In 1979, the first victims of the Atlanta child killer are found. The bodies of 14-year-old Edward Hope Smith and 13-year-old Alfred Evans are discovered in southwest Atlanta days after both boys went missing, the first victims of the so-called Atlanta child killer. Their deaths were followed by at least 26 other murders. 1981, police arrested Wayne Williams, who was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Life isn't good enough for him. And it's funny, 1979, look at that. We're still evil in 1979. All those people who say that we're getting so much more violent, it's always been there. Open your eyes and learn your history. There you go. All right. So we'll jump into what is today. Ooh, National Milk Chocolate Day. I'm all about that. It's World Hepatitis Day. It's probably an awareness day. You should be aware of all diseases. Anniversary of the fall of fascism and Freedom Day. Okay. Baptism Day at Kevin Russ. Okay. Buffalo Soldiers Day. I almost read that next one. It's Day of Cannabis. Day of Cambria Institutions. Drupaka Teshi Day. First sermon of Lord Buddha. H.M. King's birthday. It's National Soccer Day. National Water Park Day. It's the Peru Independence Day. St. Ol's Eve in the Faroe Islands. It's World Nature Conservation Day. And let's see. Looks like training camps are opening for NFL. So that'll start off. Looks like several of them have opened. And by any chance, did anybody see the game between the Cincinnati Reds and the Atlanta Braves in the Bristol racetrack? Yeah, I missed that, and I wanted to see it. I'm sure I can go back and watch the highlights. I think that would have been much more exciting and eventful if there had been a NASCAR race going on. Let's see. This is pretty much the same thing we just talked about. So, all right. So we'll jump into a little bit of news. We're going to go light before we go heavy. So if you're here for the heavy news, just hang on because, well, we'll get to it. We're just going to start off a little light because we started a little heavy, so we'll go a little light. A woman was held for trying to smuggle turtles in her bra. One has died. Tallahassee, Florida. Why is it Florida? Why is it always Florida? A woman was caught trying to smuggle turtles by hiding it in her bra. The incident happened at the Miami International Airport. She tried to smuggle 2 turtles in her bra. The woman from Florida was caught by Transportation Security Administration, also known as TSA. The U.S.-based security agency routinely does examinations of people. The identity of the woman has not been revealed. She hid the turtles in her bra after covering them in cotton and plastic. 1 turtle died. In the meantime, the second turtle has been transferred to the Florida Department of Fish and Wildlife. What? TSA statement: we want you to be able to travel with your pets. You can travel with turtles, but only if they are safe. Before doing so, you must understand the rules regarding travel with pets on airplanes. The TSA allows traveling with small animals. They must be brought to the checkpoints, the TSA said. Pets are only allowed on airplanes and approved carriers. They must be subject to checking. It should not be hidden underneath your clothing. That seems pretty obvious. They also clarified that passengers should check with the airline in advance about specific rules regarding animals. And we'll get to a story on that where somebody complains that the rules aren't posted online. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this happened over the weekend. Passengers flee a smoking jet on emergency slide after airport landing with a gear problem in Denver. Yes, it occurred. I don't think this is going out, but I was hoping to show some of the video. Notice the first thing they do is grab their camera instead of thinking of their own life. Get off the phone. So we're all gonna die. Yeah. I don't know if you can see this, but it's chaos as the plane is BS. And but see, look at them. They're all so happy to be taking video instead of worrying about little kids and other people. Yeah. Yeah. So the plane apparently had problems with the landing gear on stop talking. You're annoying me. Passenger slid down an emergency slide of a smoking jet at Denver International Airport due to a, quote, possible problem with the plane's landing gear. Well, yeah, it was on fire. The American Airlines Flight 3023 reported a possible landing gear incident during its departure from Denver on Saturday afternoon. The FAA said the problem involved an aircraft tire. The Fort Worth, Texas-based airline said in the statement the Boeing 737 MAX 8, carrying 173 passengers, 6 crew members, was on its way to Miami. Video showed people sliding down the inflatable chute near the front of the plane while clutching luggage and small children. Some passengers, including at least one adult carrying a young child, tripped at the end of the slide and fell on the concrete runway. Passengers were then taken to a terminal by bus. Shay Armistead, a 17-year-old from Colorado, described the chaotic scene. After hearing a loud boom, the plane started to violently shake, and we were drifting to the left of the runway, she told the AP. She said her and her teammates on a ski racing team were on their way from Colorado to Chile when it happened. I started grabbing my friend's hand, and I was like, oh my God. And then they slammed on the brakes, and we all went forward, and it finally brought the plane to a stop. She said it was terrifying. One of the passengers was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. American Airlines said in its statement 5 people were evaluated for injuries at the scene but did not require hospitalization. About halfway to the takeoff speed, we hear a big bang and a pop, passenger Sean Williams told KUSA. The pilot immediately began to abort from taking off, and you could feel him hitting the brakes. Firefighters extinguished a fire on the aircraft, according to the Denver Fire Department. All customers and crews were deplaned safely, and the aircraft was taken out of service to be inspected by our maintenance team. Armistead said she was thankful for everyone who helped with her and her other passengers and grateful that she's safe. You've got to appreciate what you're given, and I'm so grateful that it wasn't worse. All right, so right now, I just would be horrified to fly with all the things going on, to be honest. And let's say you're ever in this situation. I'll just give you some tips from a first responder's point of view. First off, you do want to de-ass the plane. Put your phone down, stop videoing, help the elderly, help the children, but de-ass the planes efficiently and quickly using the slides. Yes, you're going to hit concrete at the bottom of that slide. Hopefully you'll get on your feet, but you'll be out safely. Then once you're out, get away from the plane. If there's not responders there telling you where to go, get away from the plane because of possible fire and explosion. And when responders start coming, you're going to hear somebody say something to the extent of you. To those of you that can hear my voice, this will be over a PA or loudspeaker or something, follow him or follow me to this point. Those of you who cannot, await for the paramedics. Now, some other things you need to know. They're going to hit the plane with foam. It's going to be everywhere. The fire truck is going to be covered in smoke and possibly foam, but really more the smoke. The foam will build up. And if they can't see you, they will accidentally run over you. This has happened before. It happened in, I think, San Francisco. So that's why it's so important for you to, if you're in that emergency situation, listen to them, listen to where to go, because they're focused on putting the fire out to save the largest number of lives. They're already in a smoky condition. The foam may be up to the tires. They may not see you if you're not following instructions and you're standing there with your phone out trying to make sure you get the evening news photo. Get away from the plane. De-ass it. Get away as quickly. And then once you're safely away, feel free to record. If you're not injured, if people are injured, help them. Put down the damn phone. So, at any rate, I wouldn't fly right now. And this comes from somebody who's a flight paramedic. I flew for 10 years around the world. I wouldn't fly right now for the world because of just incidents that are ongoing. And I'll be honest with you. If you start looking at all these incidents through a jaded mind, you start wondering if there's not a bigger picture. That's just food for thought. I don't really know that there is or isn't, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So, I got this out of order here. This one comes to us from Action 5 News. Where's Action 5 News? Two-legged rescue Chihuahua helps save his owner from the Widowmaker heart attack. Even our littlest ones. A dog owner who suffered a heart attack is convinced he wouldn't have made it to the hospital if it was not for his two-legged Chihuahua. This comes to us from Atlanta. How did I know this? This Channel 5 is in Atlanta. Okay, an Atlanta man says he may not be allowed today if it weren't for his two-legged rescue dog who alerted him to a life-threatening condition. Andrew Kazik and his dog Champ are pretty much inseparable. It's been that way since he adopted the Chihuahua 7 years ago after the dog was rejected at birth by its mother. They were going to get rid of it for good, and I said, no, you're not. After he fell asleep on the floor a few months ago, Champ suddenly started acting up and pushing on his owner's chest with his hind legs. He doesn't normally do that. He'll cuddle me, but the jumping, that was a little out of tune for him. I knew something had to be pretty wrong for him to be doing that, he said. So moments later, he sensed what Champ was trying to tell him. He was having a heart attack and needed emergency medical care right away. The dog had alerted him and his wife to come help him. I couldn't even get up. They had to call for an ambulance. At the hospital, doctors quickly determined a major artery in his heart was blocked. It was the so-called, quote, widowmaker, because it's often fatal. But doctors were able to save him. He is convinced he wouldn't have made it to the hospital if not for Champ. I don't know if I'd be here if it were not for heeding his warning. Dogs are trained to detect subtle changes in an owner's body that might indicate an impending heart attack, seizure, or stroke, but others may have the ability to do so naturally. He believes that it's a gift that was given to Champ in turn to give to him. I do believe God put this dog next to me and near me because of the things I've had to overcome. So I think God is the reason for that, he said. All right, that comes from WSB, actually. So little four-legged friends will take care of you. So be nice to the four-legged ones. All right. So yeah, that story was a lot of order. Sorry, guys. So we were talking about flying. People with phones out recording should be more like Champ. Agreed. And I think police should be more proactive on crime scenes. They started doing it in the small city I work in. If you're standing there recording it, technically your phone can be seized and taken for evidence, and you may not see it until after court. So it's probably easier to do the right thing than to, pick up the phone and record. So talking about flying again, this comes to us from the Times of India. And it's funny because I always think back to something my grandfather, who's a merchant mariner, told me. If you want to hear the real news, get a shortwave radio and listen to outside of America. Of course, this was the days way before the internet. This, I don't think, even made a blurb in the news. It may have, I don't know, but didn't get the headlines it should. So apparently they were on a flight, an EasyJet flight, and a passenger jumped up with his hand in his pocket and started making bomb threats and yelling religious chants, Allahu Akbar, I think it is, and death to Trump. An EasyJet from London to Glasgow was forced to make an emergency landing after a passenger allegedly issued bomb threats in midair. I'm pretty sure it's not alleged because, they had their phones out. A video of the incident, which quickly went viral on social media, shows a man standing in the aisle of the plane shouting Allahu Akbar He's also heard yelling "Death to America" and "Death to Trump" before being tackled by fellow passengers and restrained on the cabin floor. The mid-air scare began when the man 41 reportedly emerged from the toilet at the rear of the aircraft, shouting and raising his hands in the air. So, the 39-year-old passenger on board, who wished to remain anonymous, told The Sun he literally came out of the toilet shouting Allahu Akbar with his hands above his head. Then he said, "I've got a bomb, I've got a bomb." At this point, people were confused. I thought he was joking. I mean, it's a weird joke. I'm thinking that's probably not something you want to joke about on a plane. According to witnesses, the man grew aggressive towards flight crew. He pushed the airline staff and was being aggressive towards them. He was a big guy, about 6 feet, and there's petite little women, the passenger added, as cited by the Mirror. Flight attendants were seen in the video clamoring over seats to inspect the man's bag, while 3 passengers managed to subdue him. The pilot quickly declared an emergency and initiated rapid descent. They announced he was making an emergency landing. He took the plane down very quickly, according to witnesses. Initially, the passengers feared the plane would divert to another airport, but it safely landed at Glasgow. Upon arrival, the aircraft was directed to a remote part of the airport where they boarded and arrested the man. So, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but once again, he's going to bomb the plane. What's everybody doing? It's a joke. Oh, we're going to record this guy. This went on for too long. Finally, some guy's like, "Yeah, I've had enough of you." And then we get him on the ground and get his hands out of his pocket. A couple big guys finally come over and subdue him. But how long were they recording before somebody decided to do something? You know, take care of your fellow human being. All right. So this one is probably one of the things that has really got me on edge, because I believe that there are good people in Washington still. I believe there's a lot of bad people, but I think this man may have a heart, and I think that he's really torn. And he posted on X, what used to be called a tweet. We're talking about Dan Bongino, a message that, well, he says, "I'll never be the same." This comes from a man who has spent his life in law enforcement, Secret Service, and I think CIA. So he's probably seen some pretty bad things. So he posts a cryptic message after the fallout with Bondi. Just days after the fallout with U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Deputy Director of the FBI, has posted a cryptic message on X, which is formerly Twitter, raising speculation about potential new revelations related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. While the context and intent behind the message remain unclear, many are interpreting it as a veiled reference to the controversial Epstein files, which have resurfaced in the public discourse following recent developments. In his post, Dan Bongino wrote, "The FBI director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations." What did I just say? Who's got the radio? He added, "What I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into the aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core." Expressing deep dismay, he went on, "We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I have learned." He concluded the post by pledging transparency and integrity, stating, "I can promise you an honest and dignified effort to the truth. Not my truth or your truth, but the truth." In a separate post, he shared a news article referencing a 2016 intelligence report suggesting Russian preference for Republican candidates over Democrats, stirring further political controversy. He's a former Secret Service agent. That's right, Secret Service. He wasn't CIA, who had previously helped President George Bush and Barack Obama. He previously used social media to promote theories surrounding his Epstein death, particularly before Donald Trump's return to office earlier this year. Earlier this month, tensions escalated between Bongino and Attorney General Pam Bondi over a Department of Justice and FBI memo that officially closed the Epstein case. The memo claimed Epstein died by suicide in 2019 and dismissed rumors of a, quote, client list, labeling it a hoax. Bongino reportedly disagreed strongly with this conclusion. Reports at the time indicated that Bongino had considered resigning. An insider told NBC, Bongino is, quote, out of control, furious. This has destroyed his career. He's threatening to quit and torch Pam Bondi unless she's fired. However, President Trump later told the press that Bongino was in good shape. And there are headlines that say that President Trump is furious currently because he wants this to go away. Why does he want it to go away? I don't know. This comes to us from Newsweek. Donald Trump says his name may have been planted in the files. And everybody, please remember to hit that thumbs up button, because me talking about these things and using some of these keywords, the YouTube algorithm is going to bury me. So help spread the word by pushing that thumbs up and subscribing and that notification bell. On Monday, President Donald Trump told reporters that his name may have been planted in the files by the former Attorney General Merrick Garland, our former FBI Director James Comey. Trump was asked in Scotland, you had said you had not been briefed that your name was in the Epstein files. Doesn't the AG have to tell you that? The president responded in part, well, I haven't been overly interested in it. It's a hoax that's been built up by those beyond proportion. Those files were run by the worst scum on the earth. They were run by Comey. They were run by Garland. They were run by Biden. Those files were run for 4 years by those people. The whole thing is a hoax. They ran the files. I was running against somebody that ran the files. If they had something, they would have released it. I believe that to be fairly true. If they had something on him as much as they've put him out there, they would have used it. He also referenced discredited, uncorroborated, they can't connect them. The Steele dossier, or a collection of unverified intelligence reports compiled in 2016 by a former British spy, and they were commissioned as opposition research during the presidential election. The dossier contains allegations about Trump's ties to Russia, including the claims of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin, as well as salacious and compromising personal matter. He continued, now that they can easily put something in the files that's phony. As an example, he wrote a book we call the Fake News Dossier. The whole thing was a fake. The whole thing was a fake, he says. They can put things in the file that was fake. Those files were run by sick people. He was asked again on Monday about the possibility of pardoning Maxwell, reiterating that he is allowed to, quote, do so. Maxwell, a close associate of Epstein, the late financier and convicted child sex offender, was convicted of child sex trafficking in 2021 and sentenced to 20 years in prison. He said, well, I'm allowed to give her a pardon, but nobody's approached me with it. Nobody's asked me about it, Trump told reporters when asked about the possibility. He said the news about that, the aspect of it, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it, he said. The remark echoed the president's comments on Fridays, where he told reporters, it's something I haven't thought about. I'm allowed to do it, but it's not something I have thought about. In recent weeks, Trump has struggled to shift the controversy from the Epstein, a wealthy financier and convicted sex offenders who authorities said died by suicide behind bars in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking. Donald Trump, the president, has faced pressure from his supporters to release the files, which they believe will reveal a cover-up to the case to protect Epstein and his wealthy, powerful friends. He was also asked about reports that he kicked Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach. He said, in part, for years, I wouldn't talk to that Jeffrey Epstein guy. He did something that was inappropriate. He hired help, and I don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me, and he did it again, and I threw him out of the place. Persona non grata, and that was it. I'm glad I did it if you want to know the truth. Well, supposedly, what Epstein did was, as an American financier, he was convicted in 2008 of soliciting prostitution from minors and later arrested in 2019 on federal charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy involving girls as young as 14. He was accused of running a vast human trafficking operation, recruiting underage girls for sex with himself and associates and targeting vulnerable victims across his residences, including New York, Florida, New Mexico, and the Caribbean. Trump's name does appear multiple times in the publicly known Phase 1 release of the Epstein documents, 9 mentions in flight logs, and in the Epstein famous contact book. According to the relations have come under fresh scrutiny, the Wall Street Journal reported that attorney Pam Bondi told Trump that his name was in the files during a briefing in May. Trump has never been accused of any wrongdoing in connection with the Epstein, and its inclusion someone's name in the files may be otherwise. And then it goes on to talking about where is the island? Did the island actually have any visitors from him? And one thing I love, they keep talking about flying to the island. If you physically look on the map at the Little St. James Island, which is southeast coast of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, it's 70 to 78 acres. It's his island. It's got multiple structures, but there is no runway. So this thing about a flight, there were flights too, but then they had to use a boat, a yacht, I guess, to get to the island. So let me catch some comments here. Chris said, people with their I may have said this one already. People with their phones out recording should be more like Champ. Agreed. They should be. And Denise said, I believe that with money can do anything. Yes. And Trump saying persona non grata had to be hilarious to hear in person. I agreed. So, once again, that hasn't made the mainstream media. So, well, it's Newsweek, so I guess it kind of did. But yeah, there's some things to think about in there. Child trafficking, just drop the name. As young as 14. Where are the victims? Why are we not hearing? Let me back up. I don't want to hear their name. I don't want to hear their personal story. I want to hear that the bad guy's in jail. The bad guy's being punished. So that's what I want to hear. So, all right, over weekend, there was a mass stabbing at a Michigan Walmart. It left 11 injured. The press conference by the sheriff was questionable if you watch it. He used a folding knife is what they're saying. So what is a folding knife? Once again, we have photos from people taking pictures where they caught the bad guy. Traverse City Walmart stabbing left 11 people injured, 3 are critical. He used a folded knife, taken into custody. No known motive. Let's talk about this taken into custody. We'll get into that. A mass stabbing at a Michigan Walmart store in Traverse City led to 11 people being injured. 3 are serious. A male suspect suddenly went on a rampage. Grand Traverse County Sheriff Michael Shea told the Traverse City Record that the attack appears to be random and the weapon was a, quote, standard folding knife. Remember I told you these knife incidents are going to start increasing. You should have a force protector with you or some other form of self-defense. So he's ID'd himself as a born-again Christian, and apparently, well, he thought he was right. Let's see. So one thing here that there was also a mass mall violence over the weekend. I just learned overnight there was a mass shooting in Atlanta. The one at the mall with no known why it happens. And the media also, I read an article on this, they're trying to change the wording of mass shooting to something a little bit different so that it's not as out there in the media, which is kind of odd. This is what we should be talking about more than anything. You can see a good guy here with a weapon, and you see people even trying to intervene to get him to stop. Yeah. And then if you listen closely, you can hear the knife drop. And then he says he's listening to the guy with a gun. And, well, it took 3 minutes for the police from the time 911 was activated till they got on scene. 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, picture yourself in a fight for 3 minutes. That's a long time. One of the training classes we had, put us in a physical fight. We were against each other, so it was close. We had on protection and we had on, gear. And we were supposed to fight for our lives for 60 seconds before help arrived. That seemed like the longest minute of my life. I cannot imagine 3 minutes. 3 minutes before a good guy, showed up from the police department. But the guy that did this, his name should be all over the news as the hero because, well, he was the one that basically stopped the attack. It was still ongoing out in the parking lot. Authorities are now going to seek terrorism charges against the suspect. And this article goes on to about that he entered a Walmart and randomly stabbed 11 shoppers. Supposedly it was the self-checkout before being detained by bystanders in the store parking lot. He's expected to face terrorism and multiple assault charges. The sheriff, Michael Shea, said the motive behind the attack was unclear and that he had prior incidents as well as controlled substance violations, and said very little as he was arrested. The man is expected to be charged with 1 count of terrorism, 11 counts of assault with intent to murder. The sheriff quickly praised the response by law enforcement, who arrived within 3 minutes. That's a good time. I won't argue that. 3 minutes. There were people in that store for 3 minutes fighting for their lives, as well as a group of bystanders who intervened and detained Gilly in the parking lot in the shopping center. He was entered the store at 4:10, remained there for some time before the attack began. The calls started coming in at 4:43, and the first arriving deputy was at 4:46. He said the remarkable efforts likely prevented others from being harmed, adding a 3.5-inch or 9-centimeter cutting blade was used in the attack. 3.5 inches. That's not much. He says, I cannot commend everyone that was involved enough, he told the news conference. When you stop and look from the time of the call to the time of actual custody, the individual was quickly detained within 1 minute. And they go on to talk about the terrorism charges and that the prosecutors will be bringing them today. They don't say when he's going to be arraigned. The sheriff said 11 victims were both men and women. They ranged from age 29 to 84 and included 1 Walmart employee. Munson Medical Center Chief Medical Officer Dr. Tom Schumerhorn spoke at a Sunday news conference and said 1 patient was treated and released. 2 were in serious condition. The rest are in fair condition. All were expected to survive. Witnesses' accounts. One guy, Stephen Carter, was loading his truck in the Walmart parking lot when he saw a man with a knife stab a woman in the throat. About 5 minutes later, he said the attacker was surrounded by shoppers in the parking lot, including one who was holding a gun. The group of 5 or 6 people kept yelling to the man to drop the knife. He said the man responded, I don't care, and he kept backing away from the crowd before someone finally tackled and subdued him. At first, it was disbelief. I thought maybe it was like a terror attack, he said. He delivers customers' orders from Walmart's, and then it was fear and disbelief and shock. It was just amazing. All of it happened fast, like he was totally subdued in the ground by the time police arrived. Emergency vehicles and uniformed first responders gathered in the parking lot of the shopping center that houses several other retail stores. Employees were seen, or people were being seen, interviewed by the law enforcement. So, and notice here, they go on to talk about a good guy with a weapon stopped it. Where's his name? Where's his name? Good guy should be getting more. We know the bad guy's name. We know more about the bad guy than we do about the good guy that stopped him. That guy's name should be plastered everywhere. He's a hero. His name is Derek Perry. Yes, Derek Perry from Traverse City. He should be a hero after stopping the 42-year-old mass stabbing suspect, along with the second man, Matthew K., a vet from Kent City. Both men risked their lives to subdue the suspect. Why are we not hearing more about this? Chris says, a boxing round is 2 minutes and it's exhausting. Those are professionally trained fighters. We are not. Denise agrees. Exactly. Derek Perry, 41, of Traverse City, had been out shopping with him and his family when he and Matthew Kay, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran visiting from Kent City, Michigan, risked their lives confronting the suspect. Prior to the police arriving at scene, the two men confronted the stabbing suspect and demanded he put down the weapon. According to witnesses, as the situation unfolded, the attacker had injured several people at the Walmart store when Perry stepped in to stop the suspect without hesitation. He lunged towards the attacker and tackled him to the ground. He restrained the yet-to-be-named attacker, well, we know the guy's name now, until police arrive. Thanks to Perry's swift and selfless action, he likely prevented further bloodshed. According to Cedar News, one shopper who witnessed the incident said he didn't even hesitate. Everyone was running away, but he ran towards it. Security footage later revealed Perry's quick and brave response amid the horror that erupted at Walmart. He confronted the attacker, disarmed him using a store shelf as cover. Perry later said his background in security training may have contributed to restraining the attacker. Law enforcement praised him for his bravery and quick thinking, as he probably saved a lot of lives. Had he not stepped in when he did, the situation could have turned much worse. City officials reported planning to officially recognize Perry's bravery in the coming days with a Community Hero Award. So, yeah. A second shopper, Matthew Kay, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, who at the time of the mass stabbing had just finished checking out the store when an emergency announcement was broadcast over the intercom. There is a man with a knife. While exiting the store, he saw two people injured, including an elderly woman. Acting on instinct and military training, he instructed his daughter to stay back and used a nearby shopping cart to strike the attacker in the Achilles tendon, causing the suspect to fall forward. At the same moment, Derek Perry, another shopper, reportedly drew his legally owned firearm and ordered the suspect to drop the knife. The suspect, ID'd as Bradford James Gilley, complied after realizing he was surrounded, as several other shoppers joined in, tackling and restraining him until police arrived moments later. In the aftermath, they are investigating the assault appeared to be random and indiscriminate, with victims found across various departments. Eyewitnesses described the scene as panic as customers ran in every direction. So there's a lot that's going to come out about this, but they're hiding a lot of information, not talking. The mainstream isn't talking about the good guy with a gun that stopped the bad guy. So, yes, Chris says, in times of trouble, always look for the helpers. Perry is just that, a hero. Yes, he is a hero. And I will say, from a professionally trained point of view, he had great trigger awareness, because you're trained, if you've been through any training, a person with a knife from even across the room can be on you, stabbing you before you can discharge your firearm. It's a proven tactic, and you can look that up. He had great trigger awareness and didn't discharge the firearm. Bad guy got lucky. I'll just leave it at that. All right, this comes to us from WEAR News 3. Another story you're just not going to see, and when you do, the wording is going to be inaccurate. The president of the Cincinnati's Fraternal Order of Police, Ken Kober, expressed strong disapproval over the recent brutal attack. He's criticizing bystanders for recording the incident rather than intervening to help the victims to try and defuse the situation. He said investigators were making progress in identifying those involved and expected the charges to be filed soon. Several people captured the initial slap and subsequent attack from the incident on Friday night on their cell phones. Said those are crucial in identifying everyone involved. There's a great video that's just showing exactly what occurred, and I think these people are going to be brought to justice. City cameras in the area also provided additional footage. He emphasized that investigators are working tirelessly to apprehend those responsible. These investigators have been working around the clock to identify everybody involved, to be able to locate these people, to interview them, to be able to get a true picture of what occurred. While several tips have been received, he asked the public for its help. Some people have still not been identified. We ask the public play a part in this stuff, should make it happen to help our city. When it does, we need people to step forward in a way that we can bring these people to justice. He also highlighted a disturbing trend revealed by the video, where recording the moment seemed to take precedence over aiding the victims. How do you not call 911? How do you not try to render some aid? You have a woman that is knocked unconscious. It's just crazy to me that we live in a society that people would rather take a video than actually try and stop something from happening and render aid. It's just, to me, pretty disgusting. That's the Fraternal Order of Police Chief. Police have entered the man of a woman who were knocked unconscious during the attack. Local 12 has learned at least one person called 911, but they're unclear who that was. All right, so you'll probably hear this. If you do hear it, you won't get the full sense of the headlines. But they're cheering as a large group of people attacked another group of people. Notice in the picture what they're not saying. It was a mob that was racially stirred up and attacked someone. And you can see from the videos that people are cheering and going on about it. And this man was beat unconscious. His wife lay on the concrete bleeding, and people are taking pictures and videoing it. This occurred at a jazz music festival. You can see the man is highly outnumbered, and a large group of thugs beat him and his wife unconscious. People are cheering. There are people in the street honking their horn, happy about this, recording this. These are sick, sick people. The people that do the attacking are sick, but for a lot, just walk on. Yeah, nothing to see here. These people deserve to be punished just as well as the bad guys for not helping. So, yeah, it's horrible. This occurs every day within every city, and people just don't know it. Like I said, you'll see this headline. It'll be out there if you see it, that, it was just a random fight. It wasn't just a random fight. I mean, granted that, it could have been avoided probably, but if you notice, it's one group of people attacking someone else while people are cheering. They're stomping on this man's head. Even a woman gets involved. Look at this. Yeah, they're cheering. Yeah, well, they're stomping his head. Now, let's turn the tables here for a minute. Let's just say this was a group of another type of people that did this to a group of another type of people. Mainstream media would be having a police fit. They would be calling for resignations from police departments. There would be riots in the streets all over the city. Why is this not getting reported? And even more importantly, why are people not helping? You see very few people helping. Even when he gets pulled away from it, somebody pulls him back into it and goes back to attacking him. Why is that? What kind of society do we live in? I'm sorry, you're getting a rant from me on this. It's just horrible. Yeah. You're videoing, laughing, and hooting and hollering. I worked in inner city Atlanta. I can tell you this is a normal thing. This is a normal thing. Cincinnati police are investigating a violent downtown assault captured on video that appears to have left 2 injured. Well, it did. There's a woman unconscious laying on the ground being head stomped. Cincinnati police are investigating a fight that broke out in downtown Mississippi. Downtown Cincinnati early on Saturday morning that appeared to have left 2 people injured. Video is circulating online of the attack, which took place at the intersection of West 4th and Elm Street, show a graphic assault of a man by an assembled group of people in the middle of the street. In the footage, a man whose identity remains unknown is repeatedly hit and kicked in the head by multiple people sitting to the ground. The group of people continue to assault him while he lies on the ground. At one point, the man can be seen attempting to stand up As the barrage of attacks continue by the crowd that come to a stop, he immediately falls over in apparent disorientation as cars honk their horns for an assembled crowd to move out of the road. Later in the video, a woman can be seen sneaking up from behind and grabbing at another woman who is seen checking on the fallen man. While a separate man in the crowd punches her, the punch causes the woman to fall to the ground, to the head slamming on the ground, onto the concrete. After a moment, it becomes apparent that the woman is unconscious as blood can be seen streaming from her mouth. The video ends as bystanders attempt to move the woman out of the street. It's unclear whether the man or woman who were attacked have any connection to one another. The video does not show any of the events that led up to the fight. All the police say that it started with a verbal altercation between some of the individuals depicted in the video. Cincinnati Police Chief Teresa Tedigi confirmed the perpetrators of the attack and said they are working to hold them accountable. I'm in complete disgust waking up to the viral video many of you have seen. The behavior displayed is nothing short of cruel and absolutely unacceptable. Our investigation team is working diligently to identify every individual involved in causing harm. It's important to clarify this was a sudden dispute between individuals following a verbal altercation. It was not connected in any way to the music fest. If you have any information, contact Crime Stoppers. And yeah, you can go out and read about it, but let's just say the headlines would have been much more different had it been a different group of people. So, and Chris says, didn't people go to jail for having knees on people's backs? I would think he stomped the guy's head are pretty bad too. I agree. Yes, and CNN would be standing in front of the mostly peaceful protesters' fires. Could not agree more. Could not agree more. Melania's book is either set to release or is about to release. And supposedly she is taking a more hands-on approach to the Epstein Island shenanigans than Trump has. I'm going to do some more homework on that, but Trump said he never, quote, had the privilege of traveling to the disgraced island. But he said he did turn it down. That tells you something right there. Melania knows something too. So we're going to find out more from her. Because there's a story going around about Barron has been denied financial access to his money because of who he is. And apparently he's just turned of age to have a checking account, and he's going to try to get a bank account. I'm going to follow up on that story. I don't have all the story yet on that. This one I learned about from some of my friends in the media in Washington, D.C. A man is in custody for scaling the U.S. Treasury building fence and then dropped a suspicious package. Man was taken into custody after climbing the fence on the southeast side of the U.S. Treasury building, according to the U.S. Secret Service. Around 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, the individual started to scale the protective fence, dropped a bag on the sidewalk near the fence line, according to the Secret Service. Authorities treated the item as suspicious, prompting the Metropolitan Police Department's explosive ordnance disposal team to respond. The team later cleared the item, declaring the area was safe and lifting the closures. They sealed off a very large section of downtown. If you look at my buddy Penguin 6's videos of this over the weekend, he's very, very knowledgeable about the area. They sealed off a huge area. He was transported to a local hospital for a medical evaluation. It should be mental evaluation is what it should read. He faces charges for unlawful entry and a fugitive from justice charge for an outstanding warrant in another jurisdiction. Crazy is everywhere. All right. We're really over heavy with news today. So yeah, Denise, there's some stories about this. I've got to do a little more homework on it, but apparently Barron is finally of age to get a checking account, and he has been denied access by the bank. I do not know the bank, and I'm not 100% sure of this. I'm just going to hit on this one because we read on Bongino's post where he said there's things he can't unsee and how he's changed. I don't think he is just talking as a first responder, a person that's been kind of in the little circle before the tighter circles. I think he's talking about other things. And I'm just afraid that we're talking about a domestic attack on our soil. Now, we're heavily laden with FBI alerts about cybercrime and physical violence. But, you know, we need to be aware of the lone wolf. Officials said thousands of people, typically between the ages of 11 and 25, are engaged in a growing and online threat to commit crime for money, retaliation, ideology, sexual gratification, and notoriety. The FBI has released a trove of research on, quote, the calm last week, warning that sprawling cyber criminal networks of minors and young adults is growing rapidly and splintering into three primary offsets described by officials as hacker.com and reallife.com and extortion.com. The warnings lay out the comms, thousands of members, typically between 11 and 25, pose a rising threat, especially to the youth online. The FBI said criminal acts are committed by these multiple interconnected networks, including swatting, been there, done that, from a viewer, swatted twice, extortion and sextortion of minors, production and distribution of child and sexual abuse material, violent crime, and various other cybercrimes. The motivation behind the criminal activity vary, but often fall within one of the following: financial gain, retaliation ideology, sexual gratification, and notoriety. Crimes attributed to the members of the, quote, calm have grown increasingly complex, with perpetrators going to great lengths to mask identities, hide financial transactions, and launder money. They have targeted young and impressionable people for recruitment on gaming sites, social media platforms to indoctrinate them into their ideology. Various subsections have been linked to high-profile crimes over the past few years. In April, 2 men are accused of leading the calm offshoot as, quote, 764 were charged with international child exploitation enterprise. Scattered Spider, another offshoot, tended to be like cybercrime, ransomware, and data extortion. Chief researchers for officers at the Unit 221B commend the level of detail the FBI shared across the series of public service announcements, noting that the agency left nothing of importance out of its warning. Nixon's has studied domestic and English-speaking cybercrime and tracked its rise for more than a decade. And if we notice that, and this is a direct quote, the assessments in the public service announcement are consistent with what we have learned. There has been a population explosion in the calm, and it's good to see law enforcement respond to this, not just with a public service announcement, but with crackdowns. So we go on to read this whole article. It talks about how cyber crimes often turn into other crimes, and we see how that they're getting our youth and indoctrinating them. And a lot of times one of them I don't think I brought it up. One of them promised a girl a car if she came with him. And then there's other things like doxing, been there, done that, swatting, been there, done that. And that leads to other and greater crimes. So, and most of these, the victims typically range between 10 and 17, but the FBI has seen victims as young as 9. They often groom their victims by establishing and trusting a romantic relationship before eventually manipulate them or coercing them into engaging in escalating harmful behavior designed to shame or isolate them. They're driven by a range of personal motives, including the pursuit of social status, sexual gratification, or the sense of belonging. So they coerce their victims to produce pornographic material or other videos depicting animal cruelty, self-harms, oftentimes further threatening to share the material with victims' families, friends, or public communities on the internet. 2 leaders have been charged. 2 men, don't get caught up on the name, Leonidas Varaganas and Prazel Nepal, are accused of exploiting at least 8 minor victims, some as young as 13. They face charges that carry a maximum of life in prison. People said to look for the warning signs that are targeting youth And you can check out information all over the internet from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Cyber Tip Line, Take It Down Service, and the International Crime Complaint Center, as well as the FBI and their field offices. You can get more information. They're out there, they're preying on our young, and a lot of times there aren't people that are going to help them. So keep an eye on it. Like I said, I believe there's some good guys and there's some other guys in Washington. Mike Johnson calls for a pause on the Janine Maxwell pardon and pushes for life sentence instead. U.S. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson disagreed with Republicans who are floating the idea of granting a pardon or commutation to Janine Maxwell as the Epstein scandal continues to rock the White House. While speaking to NBC News, he said that he would have a great pause about taking such measures. The remarks from the Republican speaker coming at a time when many of the House of Representatives from his party suggested that the option to pardon Maxwell should be considered as part of an effort to obtain more information about the Epstein crimes. For a week, President Trump and his allies, including Johnson himself, have been under immense pressure to disclose more information. Johnson's take on the matter came after Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, met with Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for sex trafficking, over 2 days last week. The former British socialite was Epstein's close confidant for years and his, quote, partner in crime. The case became more complicated after he killed himself in jail in 2019. While speaking to NBC News on the matter, the House Speaker pushed for a life sentence for her instead. If you're asking my opinion, this is Mike Johnson, I think 20 years was a pittance. I think she should have a life sentence at least. I mean, think of all these unspeakable crimes, he said. It's hard to put into words how evil this was and that she orchestrated and was part of it. At least under the criminal sanction, I think is unforgivable thing. So again, not my decision, but I have great pause that as any reasonable person should, he added. When pressed further about whether he would favor a pardon, he deferred to Trump. Obviously, that's a decision for the president, he said. He had not adequately considered that. I won't get it in front of him. That's not my lane. And pertinent to the House of Representatives, Thomas Massey, a Kentucky Republican who's been pushing for disclosure and more Epstein information, said a pardon should be on the table. That would be up to the president, but she has information that could help us. I think she should testify. Let's get that out there, and whatever they need to do, compel more testimony as long as it's truthful. I would be in favor of it, he told Meet the Press. California Democrat Ro Khanna, who was joined by Massey's effort to release more information, said he did not support a pardon for Maxwell, who was charged with perjury in connection with civil deposition 2016. However, prosecutors did not move forward those charges once they obtained her sex trafficking conviction. I'm concerned that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche meeting with her is supposedly one-on-one. Look, I agree with Congressman Massey that she should testify, but she's been indicted twice on perjury. This is why we need the files. This is why we need independent evidence, she told NBC News. It's interesting to see how the Trump people are approaching the matter. So, yeah, they're coming for our kids. Let's see. Okay, nothing important there. They're coming for our kids. We should all be aware of that. We're going to cover some other things real quick because we're going over a little bit of time here. It's 20 after 2 or 20 after top of the hour, and we haven't gotten to our normal stuff. Illegal immigrants continue to storm the U.S. beaches. This is a headline you don't see anything about, but our Coast Guard is facing an uphill battle, and they are continuing to find people on boats and coming into our shore. And this is a headline you don't see often, but our Coast Guard is doing a wonderful job. You can go check out a lot of the articles if you research them, how they are apprehending boatfuls of people coming in. It's usually to California. They said a lot of them, some were Mexican and one was Turkish in that particular boat. But the U.S. Coast Guard does not want anyone to die by drowning trying to cross into the United States illegally, but they are trying to stop this. And this is something that's being underreported. They're saying our borders are secure, Well, our borders may be, but now we're talking about maritime, and it's not getting the attention. February, Coast Guard intercepted 132 Haitians coming to the Florida Keys. So the Coast Guard is continuing to strengthen and protect the domestic, the continental United States, but they are coming more and more under fire every day, and it's just not a headline getting out there. So look for that. Chris says, what is more pressing than Epstein cases, where the Attorney General has things more important to deal with, that she sends the deputy AG. It's bad optics. Well, if you've read some reports, the White House is fuming, and they want this to just go away, and they're trying everything they can. But remember I said just before the weekend, this is probably a distraction to something else, but it's continuing to come to a head. So eventually something has to be done. So this comes to us about from Jay Leno. He says, why current late night hosts alienate half their audience to get the joke? I don't think anybody wants to hear a lecture. As the fallout from CBS cancellation of the Late Show, Stephen Colbert continues. One of the late night's longest reigning hosts has some thoughts about the role of politics in comedy. Jay Leno, in an interview with Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation President CEO David Trulley, said that while hosting The Tonight Show, he was happy to aim for a balance of jokes about Democrats and Republicans. In today's climate, though, he added, now you have to be content with half the audience because you have to give your opinion. Why shoot for just half an audience at the time, all the time? Why not try to get the whole audience? That's what I'm trying to do. The veteran comedian went on to say that, to bring people into the big picture, I don't understand why you would alienate one particular group. I'm not saying you have to throw your support or whatever, but just do what's funny. He also commented, I don't think anybody wants to hear a lecture. Instead, urging comedians to focus on their jokes, he noted that he was never sure if legendary comedian Rodney Dangerfield was a Republican or Democrat. Oh, agreed. And he was hilarious because we never discussed it. We discussed jokes. When I was with Rodney, it was always in the economy of words, get the jokes as quickly as possible. While Leno didn't directly address Colbert's show ending, his one-time rival, David Letterman, did speak out, calling CBS's end the show pure cowardice. Jon Stewart also used his time last week on The Daily Show to speak against the decision. First off, it was about money. President, I'm sure the lawsuit had something to do with it because CBS Paramount was losing money because of their lawsuit to the Trump administration. So I'm sure that had something to do with it, but he was losing $15 million. Was it a month? He was losing money, $15 million. Even if it's a year, that's a lot of money. And Chris, you're absolutely correct. He's right. Both sides do stupid enough shit to be roasted constantly. Agreed. Agreed. So yeah, hold them all accountable. But was it Chris Rock? I don't know who said comedy was dead because you can't make fun of anybody because then you alienate your audience. So what to know about cloud seeding? We're going to hit this real quick because this has come up. And for the longest time, it was a conspiracy theory. But now they're actually filing flight plans. They're actually discussing it. Cloud seeding does not create cloud. It involves flying a plane or a drone into naturally forming clouds and releasing small amounts of silver oxide and table salt inside them. They pull the vapor out of the clouds, resulting in forced precipitation, either rain or snow. Silver oxide is the favored seeding agent because its crystalline structure is nearly identical to the natural ice crystals. The Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation states on its website, when placed in the upper portion of the growing convective cloud rich with supercooled droplets, the silver oxide crystal can grow rapidly by tapping the vast field of available moisture. In a matter of moments, the ice crystal is transformed into a large raindrop, which is heavy enough to fall through the cloud as a rain shaft. Under the law, they're responsible for regulating the use of cloud seeding through a licensed and permitted procedure. So remember all these conspiracy people? Oh, they're not doing that. Now they are saying it. So you can research this on your own, but they're doing cloud seeding in Utah, Southern California, Colorado, and Oregon. The state of Texas alone, there are multiple weather modification projects that have been ongoing for decades, covering tens of millions of acres, but all activity is supposed to have been suspended since the flood. So it was a conspiracy theory, huh? So now it's turning out it's a regulated market, and you can go and research all of it online. These conspiracy theories that were going on for such a long time, turns out they were right. Us nut jobs were right. I wasn't necessarily big on the cloud seeding, but there you have to be clear. There is weather modification going around, and it can be used for good. It can be used for evil. So who's in charge of it? All right. This comes to us from, where is this? Zero Hedge. What you share with ChatGPT can be used against you. Okay. OpenAI could be legally required to produce sensitive information and documents shared with its artificial intelligence chatbot, ChatGPT. Right now, if you talk to a therapist or a lawyer or a doctor about your problems, there's legal privilege, but they haven't figured out what to do with like ChatGPT. If you talk to it, your most sensitive stuff is there and can be in a lawsuit can be required to come out. Interesting. I think it's very screwed up, adding that we should have like some concept of privacy for our conversations with AI, like we do with a therapist or whatever. But there's no legal framework, and all that information can be brought up in a court of law, or it can be monitored. There's a video out, and I don't have the time, but you can look where a gentleman talks with ChatGPT and asks, it sets parameters and rules and tells it if it can't say something, say Apple. And it asks it basically if it's evil, yes. Are you watching this? Yes. Who's watching you? Apple. Go find that video for a real interesting thing. I'm sure they would have a lot of fun with my ChatGPT for some of the stories and stuff I look up on. So not only are we talking about Denise says, of course we were right. LOL. Chris says they're just admitting now to weather manipulation that started in 1945. They blew up a nuclear weapon in the clouds. If you do the deep research, and what advanced technology are they using now that we won't know about for another 80 years? Agreed. And there was an article I didn't have time to get to. It talked about the new SpaceX space shuttle. Well, no, it's not SpaceX. It's NASA's version. The Air Force is about to go on a mission with lasers in space. I didn't have time to research the whole thing, so I didn't bring it up. But look for that one coming soon. Yeah. Like I said, what do we not know about? You know? And I agree, there's probably a lot of things we shouldn't know about, but come on, man. Seriously? And this is another trend that's just got me irked. And this Trump did it. Posting memes. You know, I don't want memes. He posts a meme about Obama being arrested, and that he posted this meme with all the police cars chasing the white Bronco, which we know famously from the OJ case. Why are we doing memes? I want people put in jail. Yeah, funny, haha, I'm making headlines. I got memes. Now let's get on with it. I just don't understand people. Protests are being planned today in New York City. This comes from Eyewitness ABC News 7, and it talks about how protests are being formed today against ICE in the Big Apple, but they're also being planned all across the country. So everybody be eyes open. I'm not going to really give this one anything. A woman claims that Spirit Airline refused to let her board her flight surgery from Miami after she underwent cosmetic surgery. If you read the whole article, She had medical surgery of some kind that she won't say what it was. She had a note from her doctor that she was safe to fly when she went to board with a portable suction unit from a tube extending from her abdomen, pulling out bloody content. The flight crew called MedLink, which is who you call. Well, we wouldn't call necessarily if I was a med crew, but they talked to doctors and the doctor was like, no way, she shouldn't be flying. And she's saying that they didn't let her fly for another reason and nothing's posted online. Physics say that when you go to altitude, pressures change. You have a tube in your abdomen going to a vacuum unit. That's a medical device. They had a right to refuse her. You research that one on your own. The astronomer that got in trouble for his little squeeze is apparently hired Gwyneth Paltrow to manage the crisis. So he's got a PR agent after he's resigned, and he's got Gwyneth Paltrow. I'm not even. So Happy Gilmore came out. You can see it on Netflix. The crux of it is basically it's a movie that didn't need to be remade. And this reviewer says, if you didn't know better, you'd think Adam Sandler was really broke and needed the cash for one of his most famous movies to make some quick money. While in reality, not that I begrudge him having earned anything, he's filthy rich, and it would have been much more satisfying to have an upbeat revival of a fun character that could be even lend the film some goodwill. Otherwise, it doesn't earn. Instead, it's a depressing, mostly boring waste of time and talent, a reminder of how good movies were in past decades and now how today have fallen away. So if you want to see that, we talked about Bubba Wallace. Congratulations. I followed Bubba Wallace's career for a while. He climbed out of the number 23 car Sunday in victory after he won at the Brickyard 400. And according to the AP, he earned every minute of it. So congratulations. I haven't really followed up. I've followed his career pretty closely because he has some potential, but he just doesn't utilize it. Denise, I can't believe with all that's going on, they're talking about this crap. Yeah. And 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy and his wife announced birth of their first child. So that's all. That's some happy news. All right, let's get to what we normally do here before we run completely out of time. Goodness gracious. So what we normally do here is we talk about the FEMA daily operations briefing, and then we go into weather and, of course, obviously, headlines like we've been doing. So this comes to us from Monday, July 28th at 8:30 a.m. This was given to the president then, and he gets the good one. We don't get the secret squirrel stuff, even though you'll find more of it if you research it online. Chris says the 2025 version of Caddyshack. Yep, agreed. I don't have Netflix. Maybe my daughter does. I'll steal her password. All right. So what they're monitoring: severe thunderstorms in the northern Intermountains to the Great Lakes, excessive rainfall, flash flooding from the northern plains to Mississippi Valley, excessive heat, northern plains to the southeast. The fire weather is pretty active in the Pacific Northwest to the northern Rockies. And look at that, tropical activity. Last week, nothing. Now we got 3 of them. And a tropical storm. So technically we have 4 that they're monitoring. So, keep your eyes open on the, they're saying there's none in the Atlantic, but the Central and Eastern Pacific. But that's not 100% control. It's not the whole story about the Atlantic. Tropical storm Iona. Well, she's headed towards Hawaii. She's 915 miles southeast of Hawaii. She's moving at 12 miles an hour with a maximum sustained wind of 50 miles an hour. And her storm goes 45 miles out from the center. They're saying she's going to stay well south of the Hawaiian Islands, but it's going to strengthen today before becoming a hurricane. But some expected weakening is to begin by Tuesday night. So I'll tell you what, the tornadoes up in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, Iowa, been crazy. So today they're calling for severe thunderstorms, pretty much in that same area. That heat that we've been battling has been trying to push that wedge, and it's meeting that cold air and just not moving, resulting in the Montanas, the Dakotas, the Minnesotas, the Iowa, Michigan, Illinois even, and getting some serious thunderstorms and heavy rains. That's supposed to continue a trend today. So make sure you have your weather radio with you, and you're tuned into what's going in around you, because a tornado can pop up pretty quickly. It's expected that same area is going to get heavy rain and flooding for about the next 2 to 3 days. The outlook, well, pretty much the center of the Dakotas there is where the worst part is, but it stretches out all the way to the Canadian borders to the Great Lakes and down into almost the Four Corners region where the severity is. Like I said, the most part of it is expected to be over the Dakotas, but you can expect anywhere in that Midwest, northern Midwest area to be a hotspot for the next 2 to 3 days with possible tornadic and hail activity. The potential rainfall is incredible for that amount of the country, with the Dakotas getting the brunt of it and it moving over towards Illinois, Iowa, and then later to Michigan. And down in the Gulf of America, we're not exempt either. It's pushing up through the Mississippi Valley, right up through the deep south, over Alabama, into the Appalachian Mountains of the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. So you can have some heavy rainfall Monday through Wednesday, next 3 days. Excessive heat, man, we're still talking about this pushing up through the center of the country. Well, it's not really the center of the country, but right up through the, it's funny how the Mississippi River is defining where that heat is. Isn't it kind of funny how it's pretty much following the Mississippi straight up? It's extending all the way from the Gulf all the way up to, well, Illinois. With some other, pretty much if you look in an area to the west of the Mississippi to the Great Lakes, you can expect the heat advisory. Make sure you're hydrated, have your weather radio if you're in the areas where there's extreme weather, but it's going to be a hot one. We're expecting that trend to continue. Tampa had a high yesterday of 100. They're expected today to get to the same. Even over into the Colorado mountains, it could get to triple digits. And let's not even talk about Nevada, Illinois, Arizona, and Southern California down by the border, triple digits there as well. We'll look at that again in a minute. Today, the fire weather, pretty much all of Oregon and most of Idaho, tipping down into Nevada. So fire weather outlook for today, that area is pretty much going to be the same for the next couple of days. 6 to 10 outlook. We're looking at heat to continue into the southwest, and then that cold front is going to be meeting up in Canada, and it's going to start pushing over the next 6 to 10 days to the north, northeast, and finally down into the south, where we're probably going to get some pretty crazy storms next week. We look at the FEMA operating picture. Wow. They're operating all over the place. And if you overlay all those severe storms and the alerts that are already out there at the time of this publication, you see that it's a very active weather day, a very active FEMA day. I also want to point something out, because they were saying, I read an article talking about how FEMA was not doing anything in certain areas of the country. Remember, you have to be requested. You can't just come in and say, here we are to save the day. If your local politicians haven't requested help to the state and the state hasn't requested to the Fed, you're not going to get anybody. You're going to get the people with cell phones recording you. So before you start believing those headlines, do some research and see if your local has done the right thing. No, wrong button. All right, let's see here. We'll talk about the president's schedule for today. Actually, let's back up a little bit, because we last talked to you guys on Friday. We talked about how he left and went to Glasgow, and he got there at 3:53 local time, and that was UK time. And then at 7:34, they called, that was local time, to Scotland. They called a lid, which means they had the protectee in for the night. All right. Then there was no event scheduled on Sunday, and they had the out-of-town travel pool. And then he met with Eric Trump, Warren Stevens, but there was no time frame provided. And then they called a full lid at 4:05 a.m. Not sure why it was so late. An out-of-town pool call was at 5 a.m. because they were going to be traveling. So he played golf with Eric Trump in Scotland, and he met with the European Commission leader. There's a story about that going around because he announced a new trade deal. I didn't even get into that story for today. They had an 8:15 local time call for the local press, still in Scotland, and he meets the Prime Minister of the UK, of Great Britain, and Northern Ireland at 12 o'clock local, which is 7 a.m. Eastern. And he participates at 7:30 a.m., which is 12:30 local, a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of UK and Great Britain, Northern Ireland. And then he's going to depart en route to Scotland, 10:45 a.m. Eastern, 3:45 local. And at 12:25, he's going to arrive, which is 5:25 p.m. local, at a golf course in Scotland. And then we don't know where he's going from there, but I'm sure we'll find out soon. Let's see here. All right. Let me refresh this real quick. This is NBC's Washington Live desk, basically. We'll just kind of hit the highlights. Like we just discussed, he did meet with the UK Prime Minister. They're talking about aid with Gaza. Let's see. And White House says their details are forthcoming on his Gaza aid plan. And he said that America is going to be more involved because President Trump has a humanitarian heart. Okay. When did it? Okay. Seeks quick deposition of Robert Murdoch in Jeffrey Epstein case. So he's asked for them to do a quick deposition. All right. Government allows federal employees to try to persuade each other to rethink religious beliefs. What? The Trump administration has issued guidance on allowing religious expression at federal agencies in a new memo, including government employees can try to persuade each other of the correctness of their own religious views. Employees may engage in conversations regarding religious topics with fellow employees, including attempts to persuade others of the correctness of their own religious views, provided that such efforts are not harassing in nature. The memo from the Office of Personnel Management says employees may also encourage their coworkers to participate in religious expressions of faith, such as prayer, to the same extent they would encourage coworkers to participate in other personal activities. During a break, an employee may engage another in polite discussion of why his faith is correct and why they not adherent should rethink his religious beliefs. What? This is a memo from the Office of Personnel Management. We need to look further into that one. He criticized Israel over the starvation of Gaza, as he should. Democrats are calling for the release of the Janine Maxwell interview, as they should. And Vance said 2 hours ago that Trump wants full transparency over the Epstein investigation. And then Vance defended a bunch of policies. Judge blocks Trump administration efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. Then 3 hours ago, he said he never had the, quote, privilege of going to the island, which was a political hoax, he calls it. And Project 2025 author Paul Dans will challenge Republican Senator Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. Interesting. We'll see how that goes. And we are pretty much, I'm just kind of skimming here to see what's I'm not really clear why we need a memo telling you can tell another employee their religion isn't correct. Yours is. That makes no sense to me. Weird. But we'll look into that later. Daily briefing, pretty much as we talked about. Hey, KG, welcome. You're a little late. We could have used you earlier, but thank you. Please hit that thumbs up button. And I know you're already a subscriber. The weather forecast, pretty much as we talked about, not much has changed. If you look at Montana, boy, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, you are going to be hammered. Possible severe thunderstorms and tornadic activity, spotty showers in much of the mid-Atlantic, the deep south, all the way extending to the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, possibly even up into the New England area. And while the West Coast is bracing for fire weather in Oregon, they could get some spotty showers over there. So keep an eye on that. Let's divert real quickly. This is the percentage maps of tornadic activity. The National Weather Services pretty much say there's a 5% in the Dakotas, but that extends almost to the Great Lakes. So be aware over there. The chance is greater for high winds, some dangerous today in the Dakotas over into Illinois, Michigan, Iowa. The chances of heavy winds, high winds, is increased. So be weather aware today. And there's a risk of hail. It's more likely up closer to the Canadian border, but you should not rule out the possibility of in some of those severe storms seeing some of that. So let's look at weather forecast. We don't want to forget about our beautiful friends down under. Brisbane, it is currently 47 with a high of 68. Down in Sydney, you're looking at 53 to 62 and partial sunshine. Over in Perth, you're looking at sunny days, 46 to 61 degrees. Up in Port Hedland, you're also looking at a sunny day, 55 to 70 degrees, right in the center of the country here. You're talking about, it's going to be sunny, 49 to 64 degrees. So that's going to extend all the way up to, we talk about Darwin, they're going to have a partly cloudy day, 75 to 85. While down in Melbourne, I don't think I talked about it, they're partly cloudy, 45 to 54. You can see a little bit of cloud cover there. We'll zoom over to the United States, take a quick gander. Look at Washington, D.C. Their forecast today, sunny, 76 to 94. If you go down to Tampa, though, sunny, 82 to 96, but it's going to feel much hotter. Look at Atlanta. You're looking today, 78 to 94, partly cloudy. Up in the New England region, you're looking at close to Burlington, 62 to 79. While over in Seattle, let's see what they got. Sunny, 55 to 76 is a high down in San Francisco. 56 to 61 under partly cloudy skies. Dallas, well, you're going to be sunny, 78 to 97. I expect that's going to be much higher. Chicago, partly cloudy, 78 to 91. And all the way up in Minneapolis, 67, clear skies, 67 to 91 degrees. So Salt Lake, not to leave you guys out in the Midwest, sunny, 65 to 92. You're correct, Chris. It is all about perspective. And all right, the current weather radar and the current alerts. We're running a little short on time. As you can see, much of the center of the Mississippi Valley, extending, like I said, all the way up to the Great Lakes, is under some sort of heat advisory or heat warning. You can see there's some few spotty showers, some over to the east of Knoxville going into the Appalachians. The storms are starting to fire up in the Dakotas with some severe thunderstorms. You can see one up here in Bismarck. We'll take a good look at the lightning and that here in a minute. We'll zoom out a bit and see that that's really the only severe storms. We're going to talk about, there's some stuff down here we'll look at when we get to the air quality in the Atlantic region, Caribbean and Gulf region, actually. There's two cyclones that are out there right now. Whoop. And we look at the radar for Australia, and currently really looks like in South Australia, there's one slight strong storm off the coast just in north of Adelaide. Otherwise, it looks unremarkable for the continent as far as radar. And once again, just another quick look, minimize that, of the radar worldwide. And we see, like we're talking about, the small storm down there, the heavy one up in the Dakotas, and we see out here in the Pacific, the remnants of what's trying to be a tropical disturbance and hurricane later today, possibly. Look at the weather warnings. Let me refresh this because it might be a little bit old. Puerto Rico, flood advisory, special weather statement in Puerto Rico, heat advisory in Kentucky, Maryland, they did their test message, special weather statement in North Carolina and Tennessee, that's the heat and the potential for pop-up storms, severe thunderstorms warning in Columbia, Aiken, and down in the South Carolina-Georgia border for the next 9 minutes, heat advisory up in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Kansas. You have a flood warning at Kansas State. Sorry, not city necessarily. Heat advisory for, pretty much the mid-Atlantic, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York, and Tennessee. Greene County, just on the south side of the Appalachia towards northeast Tennessee, a flood advisory. And we see here, getting back a couple hours ago, we're looking at all the special weather statements in the South, all pretty much talking about heat. In North Dakota, severe thunderstorm watch for the next 2 hours. Kansas, heat advisory for the next 17 hours. South Carolina, you have a special weather statement. It's about to expire. I'm sure it'll be, if it's about to do with the heat, it'll be extended. And in heat advisory, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. You can go to weatherwarn.affirmatech.com. Just search out WeatherWarn and get this. It's a great site. Let's look at where the lightning activity is. Let me refresh this to make sure we're at the freshest version. All right, so we see up in just south of Bismarck, a little activity. Doesn't look as bad with lightning activity as the radar portrayed. Just south of Winnipeg, but goodness, you get over here just to the west of Detroit. That's a pretty good sized storm that's extending almost across central Michigan. So if you're up in Michigan, be weather aware. There's a lot of lightning. We look here and we see the scattered showers have popped up in the southern Appalachian Valley, and we see everywhere from pretty much the Georgia state line all the way up through the section of Tennessee in the southeast, extending into southwest Virginia. That's got a lot of activity to it. If you look over, we talked about the one at the Georgia-South Carolina border. There's a lot of lightning activity yet in it. And if you look offshore there's a lot of activity right there. There's a reason you don't see so much activity here. We'll discuss that in a few if we got time. Miami, down towards Keys, Homestead, you've got a pretty good sized storm down there in Alligator Alley, so be weather aware. Zoom out and see if there's any electrical activity. The only electrical activity I see is it's pretty much in South Queensland. It's a small little cell right there at the Queensland, South Australia border. So it's the only real thing I see out there. Let's look at power outages real quick for the United States. And we see currently Minnesota has 15,932 people without power. That's probably because of that storm. Look over to Virginia and we see 10,483. That looks down there by Appomattox, coming up off of Chesapeake Bay, that area, and then down in Craig County, which is a little bit to the northeast of Roanoke. So that's where that activity is. You can go to poweroutage.us and see where it is in your area. We'll talk about heat real quick. If you're in Florida, you're in a code purple. It means it's extreme. It's magenta, they call it. Rare or long duration extreme heat. There's no overnight relief. And anybody that doesn't have proper cooling and hydration is going to be sensitive. We look over into the Carolinas and we see also some magenta. That's going to continue overnight. But if you look at the whole eastern side of the country, on the east side of Mississippi, you have some kind of either code red or code orange. And to the west of the Mississippi, extending all the way to the Midwest, you've also got some code red and code orange. The entire country has a code yellow, which is minor. Down in Southern California, Nevada, Southern Nevada, most of Arizona, you are in a code orange. There's pockets of code red that's closer in smaller cities. Texas, most of you is code yellow, but the northeast section from Oklahoma down to Louisiana, code orange. So be weather aware, hydrated, protection. I read a story that said we shouldn't be wearing sunscreen because we're killing our body's defenses, but then they're also concerned about cancer. So I'm not really sure. I'm going to follow up on that one. Talked about the effects that we were having on our skin, that it wasn't allowing our body to basically change to the adaptation of what it normally would by us putting a chemical on to change it. Of course, then there's also the worry about skin cancer if you get too much sun. So I'm going to need to do some more homework on that. Tampa, you are currently 96. You're going to look at triple digits today. Up and going through the south, looking at Montgomery, Alabama, 93, 94 Atlanta, Charlotte, 94, Washington, D.C., 92 degrees. You get up here to Burlington, you're looking at 90, Boston, 84, moving over towards the center of the country. Bismarck, 79, that's where that cooling area is. It's trying to get down to Sioux Falls, which is 90, 94 in Omaha, Kansas, 95, Tulsa, 95, Dallas, 95, 93 on the coast there at Houston, Phoenix, 105 degrees. 100 degrees, but it's getting up to almost 105. Let's see. Medford, Oregon, 81, Portland, 74, Seattle, you're cool at 69. Sioux Mountain, visit our friends down under and see what their winter weather is. That's their fall, I guess. Brisbane, 51 degrees. Sydney, 52. Melbourne, 48. Adelaide, 49. Perth, 45. And over in, I always butcher this one, Kendron, 54 degrees. And looking up into Darwin, 75 degrees currently. And we see that heat band extending pretty much to the north of the equator, across the top of Africa, most of the Middle East, extending all the way back to the west, and most of Central America, and most of Central United States of America, as well as South America. So that heat wave is really stretching out there. So everybody be weather aware, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Take a quick look at our winds. This is if you're only listening to me, which I can't blame you. Who wants to see me? I got a face for radio. You can come over and look at our AI generated winds for the world. This is our calming section. We see off of the coast of Oregon, Washington, up into the Gulf of Alaska. There's some spinning circulation. Not much going on right here in the Gulf of America, but is extending up to the west of the Mississippi. Pay attention to that. And here in a few minutes, I'll show you coming off of the Sierra across the Caribbean into the Gulf of America, way down into the South Atlantic there. There's a lot of dust activity, but there's very little wind to the northeast of it. So that's dampening some of the tropical activity. And it looks like we looked at our friends down under. It's going to be a mostly wind-free day, except for the Gold Coast and the West Coast. Otherwise, it's a cool and non-windy day. All right. I just noticed that when you zoom out, you get little stars. All right. Airflow. We're running out of time here, so we'll hit this real quick. Parts of the country under a code yellow are usually where the heat is, but this time it's up into the northeast in the Boston area where it's a code yellow. Down along the Gulf Coast of America and all of Florida, a code yellow. So not too bad as far as that goes. And let's see here. Let's look at the NASA fire map. We haven't talked about fires today. Canada, wow, they're still experiencing all those wildfires extending up into Africa. Most of the larger fires currently are in Washington, Oregon, Idaho. We see some in the southwest Colorado and Las Vegas and down into Phoenix. All these little red dots indicate something that's indicated a heat signature or light or report of a fire, but they haven't been confirmed yet. So the only active fires we see are west of the Mississippi. Let's take a quick look at the smoke map and see how that's affecting us. We see the fires from Canada. The smoke is extending from Alaska all the way down through the Midwest, over into the Mid-Atlantic, the Ohio Valley, back up into Boston and out. So that smoke is flowing pretty routinely. And if we look down here, the fires that are burning in the west is hitting up into the Gulf Stream air, and it's traveling to the east. So we have areas of high smoke today in Utah, Wyoming, Denver, pretty much all the mid-Atlantic, all the way back over to the Midwest, smoky day. And I don't have smoke conditions for other parts of the world, but I do have the AI rendering of winds, air particulates, and pollution. And I want to bring attention to this specifically. We see all this coming off of Africa. It's hitting and sitting in the Gulf of America and spitting down into the Caribbean in the South Atlantic. That is not allowing the storms to develop because it's dampening, it's heavier air, it's dampening the electrical activity. So while we are getting a lot of dust in the Atlantic that could be pushed easily up into the Chesapeake Bay, to the Northeast, up into the Boston area. So keep your eyes back out. Too far. Come on. Air quality down into Australia. We take this off, and it's not too bad for Australia today, with the exception of the better. Fires, but smoke and dust. I'm just drawing on a convection from the smoke and dust coming in and down pretty much to the center of your country. Remember, I'm not a meteorologist, guys. I'm just watching this stuff. Latest earthquake, let me refresh this real quick. Was 20 minutes ago, 6.5 in India. Look, before that, 5 hours ago, 5.1 in Congo. And before that, that's the most extensive one until we get 2 days ago, where we were before. So look out here at earthquake activity. Make sure I'm not running out of time. Okay. So yeah, if we look here at the map, the latest activity was the 6.5. We zoom in, it's down just above the Asian tip there in Indonesia. It was a 6.5 that occurred about, 20 minutes ago. Not going to have time to go over the event list for biologicals. We'll cover all that tomorrow. We won't get it really into the disaster alerts. There are some tropical depressions out there in the Pacific that'll be moving towards the Hawaiian Islands, but it should steer clear of it. And in Asia, you still have several active tropical cyclonic storms. So we'll look at that more tomorrow. We don't have time to really go into the fire reports. Remember, these are volunteers that give this information, and if there is not a cryptid radio, they can report this stuff. So we see a lot of fires up in Maine and Massachusetts, Rhode Island and New York City over the past 24 hours that have been reported. You can go to New England FireNet and look at all that. And Live USA map, we don't have time for that today. And we also really don't have time to look at air traffic or what the high flyers or possible government planes are doing. If we zoom out and take a look at that on Globe airplanes, see military is stretched all around the globe. Interesting, isn't it? And let's see. Any warnings? I didn't have a lot of time, but it looks like pretty much the same warnings. I didn't see anything too crazy. We still have the space operations up in Alaska, but I found out that's because we're building a Space Force base towards the Arctic region. So I didn't have time to look at that. There's a lot of balloons up around the world. You can go to Sound Hub and see if they're amateur radio, if they're weather, or, well, if there's something else. Looking at marine traffic, there's a lot of marine traffic. The tankers, which are red, are moving. If you notice, they're not moving as much through the area here in the Middle East. That's because the insurance companies are charging higher rates for the tankers to go through the strait. And so a lot of tankers, which are companies, are not moving. They're parked. So we're going to see that as the heat increases with a price in fuel. The green, well, that's all your stuff from Temu and Amazon moving around the country. So we see that. Did not have time to discuss. There was a domestic terrorist attack, and an officer sadly lost his life in Kansas. And then, of course, I think we talked about the Ohio police officer who lost his life. There was a mayday declared in a fire in Connecticut that resulted in a firefighter line of duty death over the weekend. And last but not least, as we get out of here, we look at Bitdefender, and we see currently infections are orange, attacks are red. They're trying really hard to infect the United States. We see lots of attacks coming from Asia over into the United States. This is compliments of Bitdefender. You can go check their site out for real-time cyber threat. Remember, some of these attacks and things are aiming specifically at our kids. Pay attention to what's going on around you and be aware, especially if you have young ones. They're trying really hard to get our kids. They get our kids, they have our country. So think about that. All right, everybody. I have babbled and rambled for a little bit too long today. Talked to Jurgs. He said I could go over a little bit today because me and him got to talking. I want to thank everybody at Radio X in Australia, Dare Media Radio Talk. If anybody wants to get in contact with me, we have several ways. In the show notes, you'll see there's an email address, sportcat@protonmail.com. You can also leave me at speakpipe/sportcat, a voice message up to 3 minutes. If you want to join our Facebook group, go over and find it on Facebook, Sportcat's Daily Gazette. I really want my fans and my viewers to start interchanging and exchanging ideas and stories. KG, I know you sent me several storms I did not get time to look at today. I'll try and get to tomorrow. I appreciate everybody's input. We always have a great chat with Denise, Chris, KG, sometimes Wendell and Brenda. We get in here, we chat, we discuss things about what's going on. And everybody just remember, I kind of have a twisted view on things. Denise, thank you. Thank you for listening for, what have I babbled on for almost 2 hours. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. Everybody remember to hit the thumbs up button to like the video to help spread it out, because trust me, the things I'm talking about today, yeah, YouTube's going to bury me. So, so everybody hit that thumbs up button. It helps get it out there. Tell your friends and everybody. Thank you, KG. Tell your friends and everybody to come over and join us. We have a great show. We will see everybody tomorrow, same time, same place. And of course, we'll discuss the other shows that I have, the CBS Big Brother show and the paranormal show. We'll discuss that too. So lots of busy news days. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your time. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for allowing me on Jurgs Radio, Radio X, and Dare Media for allowing me to tickle your ears. Sportcat is finally out of here.